Good afternoon and welcome from the Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy, also known as ASTP. Today's information session will be on the 2025 Special Emphasis Notice, also known as SEN, under the Leading Edge Acceleration Project, also known as LEAP, in Health Information Technology Notice of Funding Opportunity. Applications are currently being accepted that demonstrate: one, the readiness of FHIR-based subscriptions capability as a foundational health IT capability for improving interactivity with third-party applications, and two, identify and test innovative technical approaches that would inform future changes to the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement, also known as TEFCA, infrastructure to increase adoption of individual access services, also IAS. Next slide. Today's agenda will include an introduction of speakers, a few reminders, the background on the LEAP in Health IT, as well as a breakdown of the 2025 SEN and the application's responsiveness and merit review criteria. Today's ASTP speakers include myself, Yolanda Thompson, from the Office of the Chief Operating Officer, Procurement and Grants Division, and Allison Kemp, Office of Standards, Certification and Analysis, Strategic Initiatives Branch. Just a few reminders. This webinar is being recorded and will be made publicly available. All participants will be muted during the presentation. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat box. All questions will be answered in a frequently asked questions format, which will be made publicly available weekly. The webinar and FAQs will be made available at the healthit.gov link on this page. If you have questions during the presentation, use the chat function, which can be found along the bottom of the webinar window. Input your question in the chat box and then press enter or return to send. If you have additional questions after today's webinar, please direct them to the following email address: astp-leap@hhs.gov. I will now turn it over to Allison Kemp for the background on the LEAP in Health IT Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Thanks, Yolanda. Next slide, please. So I will be starting with the background of the LEAP in Health IT NOFO. So LEAP in Health IT seeks to address well-documented and fast-emerging challenges that inhibit the development, use, and/or advancement of well-designed, interoperable health IT. Applications submitted under this special emphasis notice will be funded under the LEAP in Health IT Notice of Funding Opportunity. Aside from the areas of interest, required expertise, and deadlines listed in the SEN, all other requirements, application instructions, and terms and conditions of this NOFO apply, with the exception of the applicant capabilities. Eligible applicants. This is a competitive funding opportunity open to public or nonprofit private institutions, such as a university, college, or faith-based or community-based organization, units of local or state government, eligible agencies of the federal government, and Indian, Native American tribal governments, federally recognized, other than federally recognized, and tribally designated organizations. For-profit organizations may participate in projects as members of a consortia or as a subrecipient only. Because the purpose of this NOFO is to improve healthcare in the United States, foreign institutions may participate in projects as members of a consortia or as a subrecipient only. Applications submitted by for-profit organizations or foreign institutions will not be reviewed. Organizations described in Section 501(c)(4) of the Internal Revenue Code that engage in lobbying activities are not eligible. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services grants policy requires that the grant recipient perform a substantive role in the conduct of the planned project activity and not merely serve as a conduit of funds to another party or parties. If consortium contractual activities represent a significant portion of the overall project, the applicant shall justify why the applicant organization, rather than the parties performing this portion of the overall project, should be the recipient and what substantive role the applicant organization will play. Applicant organizations may submit more than one application, provided that each application is scientifically distinct. Now I will share information about the special emphasis notice for applications under the LEAP and Health IT NOFO. There are 2 areas of interest within this year's SEN, and 1 award per area of interest will be given. Each award will be up to $1 million over a 2-year period of performance. Applicants are encouraged to submit their applications based on a 5-year budget period. Additional funding for years 3 to 5 may be provided, contingent upon availability of funds, meaningful progress, and ASTP priorities. Letters of intent are due by March 27th, 2025. Applications are due by April 25th, 2025. I will now give an overview of each of the areas of interest. Area of interest 1 is to demonstrate readiness of FHIR-based subscriptions capability as a foundational health IT capability for improved interactivity with third-party applications. Area of interest 2 is to identify and test innovative technical approaches that would inform future changes to the TEFCA infrastructure to increase adoption of IAS. Applicants shall clearly state which area of interest their proposed project will address. Application packages addressing more than one area of interest will not be considered for award. In area of interest 1, there will be 1 award given of up to $1 million on the topic of demonstrating readiness of FHIR-based subscriptions capability as a foundational health IT capability for improved interactivity with third-party applications. The goal of this area of interest are to first demonstrate that HL7 FHIR-based subscriptions is a foundational capability that supports a broad array of essential health information interoperability needs via HL7 FHIR-based application programming interfaces. Projects should, through their implementation, demonstrate whether the implementation specifications developed by the standards community for HL7 FHIR-based subscriptions capabilities are ready to be widely implemented by health IT developers and to be made available to third-party client applications. Next, I will share the applicant required expertise. So for area of interest 1, applicants shall demonstrate familiarity with and understanding of the following: experience with developing applications using HL7 FHIR Release 4.0.1, familiarity with HL7 FHIR subscriptions capability, experience with engaging health IT standards community, experience with developing patient-facing apps using HL7 FHIR. Other requirements include that the technical solution must be based on the HL7 FHIR Release 4.0.1 standard. The technical solution must demonstrate and pilot HL7 FHIR-based subscriptions specification using a server and an unaffiliated third-party application acting as the subscriptions client. The technical solution must include at least 1 use case that demonstrates beneficial interactive exchange with third-party client applications over query-based exchange. The key objectives for Area of Interest 1 are to advance and mature existing HL7 FHIR-based subscriptions capability for readiness to be widely adopted by health IT developers. Demonstrate how use of subscriptions capability can lead to beneficial interactive data exchange between EHRs and third-party client applications. Demonstrate how an HL7 FHIR-based subscriptions specification can be a foundational health IT capability to support a modern API-based digital healthcare system in the United States. Next, I will review Area of Interest 2, which is to identify and test innovative technical approaches that would inform future changes to the TEFCA infrastructure to IAS funding, eligibility, and application information, and one award up to $1 million will be given. The goal of this area of interest is to explore and test innovative technical approaches that could be applied to the technical infrastructure used for IAS exchange in TEFCA. These approaches would ideally lead to increased participation of IAS providers, improved responses for IAS requests from responding nodes, and markedly increase the number of individuals using TEFCA to access their EHI. We expect that TEFCA partners, including qualified health information networks, participants, and sub-participants, may also be informed by the technical approaches identified through this area of interest. Applicants for Area of Interest 2 shall demonstrate familiarity with and understanding of the following: TEFCA, including its technical and policy components, understanding of IAS in TEFCA, understanding of health IT networks, developing patient-facing apps using HL7 FHIR. Other requirements for Area 2 include, at a minimum, describe in detail one or more technical barriers currently impeding entities that could be IAS providers from participating in TEFCA, or that impede QHINs, participants, or sub-participants from becoming IAS providers and offering IAS services to individuals, or both. Describe in detail a technical solution to the technical barriers, including provide sufficient details on the technical solution to demonstrate it is based on non-proprietary technologies. Provide a detailed plan on how the applicant intends to test the solution. Provide a detailed plan describing how the solution will be demonstrated in a manner that would be informative to future changes to technical infrastructure used for IAS exchange in TEFCA. Identify an approach to improve IAS exchange while adhering to data security and privacy standards, including ensuring consistency for covered entities' compliance with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act HIPAA privacy rule where applicable, its implementing regulations, and other relevant regulations. Provide details of any changes that the applicant believes might be needed to TEFCA standard operating procedures related to IAS exchange to implement the technical solution. The key objectives for Area of Interest 2 are as described in the background section. TEFCA is currently operational and actively facilitating exchange of electronic health information among QHINs, participants, and sub-participants using established technical infrastructure and standard operating procedures that define the contours of IAS exchange. Any changes to the technical infrastructure in TEFCA would need to be well tested in a sandbox environment, demonstrated to meaningfully add value over existing approaches, and be likely to be embraced by partners currently participating in TEFCA. Based on these considerations, there are 3 key objectives in this area of interest as follows. Identify technical barriers that impede entities that could be IAS providers from participating in TEFCA and offering services to individuals. Develop and test non-proprietary, innovative technical solutions to the identified technical barriers. Demonstrate the technical solutions to the identified barriers that can be made to the technical infrastructure used for IAS exchange in TEFCA. Additional objectives for area of interest 2 include that applicants have flexibility to propose activities that achieve the goals and objectives of Area 2, which could include but are not required. For example, improvements to the technical requirements for IAS providers and any related standard operating procedures that would increase utilization of patient-facing applications under TEFCA. Implementing new ways to perform identity proofing, verification, resolution, and overall identity management of individuals in the context of TEFCA exchange that could simplify the process for individuals to use IAS provider services. Identifying a method of replacing demographics-based patient matches with non-proprietary deterministic approaches that could be broadly adopted within TEFCA. Now I will describe the funding, eligibility, and application information. This slide shows a summary of key details for this SEN for applications under the LEAP and Health IT NOFO. The awards will be cooperative agreements, and up to $2 million is available for 2 awards. The application due date is April 25th, 2025. The anticipated award date is June 5th, 2025. The performance period is 2 years. The anticipated start date is June 5th, 2025. And 1 award up to $1 million will be given for each area of interest. Letters of intent. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit a non-binding email letter of intent to apply for this funding opportunity. These letters of intent should be submitted by March 27th, 2025 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll submit these letters of intent to astp-leap@hhs.gov. In your email to ASTP, please include the title of this SEN, which area of interest you are applying for, the name of the applicant organization, the city and state of applicant organization, and the NOFO number. For the application process, you will submit all material electronically through grants.gov. This process is outlined in the NOFO. Contact the grants.gov help desk at support@grants.gov or call 800-518-4726 for assistance with submitting applications on grants.gov. Have a unique entity identifier. UEIs can be obtained via registering at sam.gov and typically take 7 to 10 business days. Please plan accordingly. If you have already registered with SAM but have not renewed your registration in the last 12 months, you will need to renew your registration. And ensure that the application meets application requirements and page limits by the deadline. This slide shows a list of application components. There's a project abstract and project narrative, and then forms SF-424, the application for federal assistance, Form SF-424A, budget information for non-construction programs, Form SF-424B, assurances for non-construction programs, Form SF-LLL, disclosure of lobbying activities, a budget narrative, and letters of commitment. Now I will describe the project abstract. The abstract represents a high-level summary of the project that can be understood without reference to other parts of the application, and that provides a description of the proposed project, including the project's goals, objectives, overall approach, anticipated outcomes, products, and duration. The format of the abstract is to include no more than 500 words, the project title, the applicant name, physical address, contact name, contact phone numbers, email address, and website address if applicable. Now I'll describe the project narrative. The project narrative should address the elements articulated in the areas of interest section of this NOFO. The project narrative should also align with the performance goals and objectives and merit review criteria presented in this NOFO. Applications that did not follow the outlined format must be reviewed by an ASTP designated official. The format of the project narrative is for it to be double-spaced and no more than 35 pages, to be formatted to 8.5 by 11 inches plain white pages, using either Cambria or Times New Roman font, and to have 1 inch or larger margins and font size of 11 point or greater. Your project narrative should include the following components. These components will be counted as part of the page limit. The suggested lengths of the components given below are guidelines to help applicants create a balanced document. They are not mandatory restrictions. The understanding of project purpose section may be 2 to 3 pages. The proposed approach and activities may be 10 to 14 pages. The applicant capabilities may be 9 to 15 pages, and the budget narrative may be 2 to 3 pages. In the understanding of project purpose section, it should offer the applicant's conceptualization of the selected area of interest. This should include, from the applicant's perspective, a specific delineation of the objectives and research challenges the proposed project will address, specifically distinguishing between challenges that can be addressed in the self-contained project period of 2 years and challenges requiring a longer period of 3 to 5 years. Applicants shall clearly state which area of interest the proposed project will address. In the proposed approach and activities section, should provide a clear and concise description of the approach the applicant is proposing to use to conduct the research and development work, including identifying the major challenges and proposed activities used in the approach. This should be organized so that each element of the project plan is clear and aligns to the project's key objectives and project goals. The applicant should include the usage of novel concepts, approaches, methodologies, tools, and/or technologies, and provide insight as to how their usage will inform the field of health IT. The approach should also include proposed strategies on how the results of the project may be disseminated and transitioned to the field at large. The approach should include as much details as possible given the page limitation. The plan for each activity at a minimum shall state the following: specific aims, previous work of the investigative team on which the proposed research is directly based, the methods that will be applied, the anticipated outcomes of the work, and their potential significance in addressing the challenges of the selected area of interest, the key personnel who will be involved. The applicant capabilities section should describe the applicant's project team, personnel qualifications, and past performance, demonstrating experience consistent with successfully meeting the goals of the cooperative agreement. It is recommended that the project team be comprised of, but not limited to, the following roles: a project director or principal investigator. At least one person on the proposed team shall possess health IT expertise. For area of interest 1, the proposed research team must have expertise in the area as outlined in the SEN. For area of interest 2, the proposed research team must have expertise in the areas as outlined in the SEN. In the plan for disseminating and transitioning appropriate research results into practice section of your application, you should include a plan for engaging industry stakeholders to adopt, disseminate, and transition findings from the project into data standards, data infrastructures, health IT products, tools, and best practices. Collaborative arrangements with industry and other groups outside of the applicant institution should be accompanied by appropriate letters of support. In the event an applicant's solution includes the development of a prototype, the applicant should also submit a plan for approval by ASTP, illustrating how the prototype will be made and maintained in a publicly available and acceptable domain at no cost to the general public. In the stakeholder coordination section of your application, you should describe plans to establish and operate a technical expert panel of relevant and appropriate stakeholders, including names of members who have committed to join or propose to join to help inform the work to be conducted on the relevant area of interest. In the project management section of the application, it should include a clear delineation of the roles and responsibilities of the principal investigator, participating researchers, project staff, consultants, and collaborating organizations, and how they will contribute to achieving the research objectives and outcomes. If the application includes subcontractors, plans for coordinating activities across multiple organizations should be described. This section should specify who would have day-to-day responsibilities for key tasks such as leadership of the project, monitoring the project's ongoing progress, preparation of reports, and communications with other collaborating organizations and ASTP. And recipients will be required to maintain information relevant to executing the proposed project plan and performance-based outcomes. The application should describe the approach that will be used to assess project performance and monitor and track progress toward meeting key objectives. And the application should include the following: a detailed project timeline as an appendix that incorporates those objectives, and an organizational chart as an appendix that reflects roles and responsibilities. In the organizational capabilities statement, the section should describe the organization's capabilities, qualifications, and approach to address the work to be completed. The statement should highlight potential strategies the organization may employ in an effort to sustain research efforts beyond the scope of the project timeframe. This statement should include the relevant organizational resources available to perform the proposed project, such as facilities, equipment, and other resources. Applicants who are working with project counterparts as part of a consortia shall also provide letters of commitment from them. The letters of commitment shall be included with the appendices and will not count toward the 35-page limit. And in the budget narrative section, it should include a detailed breakdown of how the applicant plans to spend the allotted resources to complete the activities detailed in the NOFO. The budget narrative on the proposed budget, as articulated in the SF424A, aligns with the applicant's project narrative. Application for federal assistance, Form SF424. The budget information for non-construction programs, Form SF424A. Assurances for non-construction programs, Form SF424B, and disclosure of lobbying activities, Form SFLLL. Detailed budget instructions are provided in the NOFO. And now I'll transition back to Yolanda.
Thank you, Allison. I'll now review the application responsiveness and merit review criteria. For the application review process, please submit all the application material electronically through grants.gov. Grants.gov will issue an email receipt upon successful submission. Applications are reviewed for responsiveness and categorized as pass/fail. All applications that pass the review for responsiveness are forwarded for merit review. Once the merit review is complete, ASTP may make an award. However, ASTP is not obligated to make an award if none of the applications meet the intent of the program requirements or if there is a change in funding levels or availability of funds. The application responsiveness criteria. All applicants must meet the following completeness criteria or they will be administratively eliminated and not sent forward for merit review. The applicant must meet the eligibility criteria. The application must be received by the deadline of Friday, April 25th, 2025 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time through grants.gov. The application contains all the required components such as the project narrative, the SF424, etc. The application meets all formatting and length requirements. Appendices and attachments are not used as a mechanism to exceed page limits of the project narrative. For the merit review criteria, responsive applications are forwarded for merit review. Merit reviews will be conducted by a review panel of at least 3 experts in the field from academic institutions, nonprofits, and local and federal government agencies. Applications can receive a maximum of 100 points using the following scale. For the understanding of project purpose, 10 points. The proposed approach and activities, 40 points. Applicant capabilities, 30 points, and the budget narrative, 20 points, to give you a total of 100 points per application. For the merit review criteria, the understanding of the project purpose is 10 points. To the extent which the application addresses the objectives and project goals of this NOFO, the extent to which the application identifies the project plan and activities that align with one of the 2 identified areas of interest within the NOFO, to the extent which the application identifies barriers and ways to mitigate those barriers with one of the 2 areas of interest within the NOFO, the extent in which the applicant describes how the project expected outcomes and results will inform the future health IT development, research, and implementation. The second criteria, approach and activities, the extent in which the application, design, methods, and analysis are specifically stated, adequately developed, well integrated, well reasoned, and appropriate to the project goals, key objectives of the area of interest is going to be 20 points. The extent in which the applicant proposed a clear and detailed plan for disseminating and transitioning appropriate research results into practice. This section of the application should include a plan for engaging industry stakeholders to adopt, disseminate, and transition findings from the project to stakeholders who will continue to advance the work. That will be a total of 15 points. To the extent in which the plan describes the project management approach for ensuring project success will be a total of 5 points. Under the applicant's capability will be a total of 30 points. To the extent in which the applicant identifies all the resources necessary to perform the proposed work and outlines strategies to complete this work within a 2-year time frame will be 5 points. The extent to which the scientific environments in which the work will be done contributes to the probability of success, employs useful collaborative arrangements, and has evidence of institutional support will be 5 points. And the extent to which the project proposal integrates and provides an appropriate level of research and technical knowledge and subject matter expertise, 20 points. And finally, the budget narrative will be a total of 20 points. Does the applicant provide the proposed levels of effort of the project team and consultants if needed, and describe how they are adequate and appropriate to advance the project in accordance with the project plan? Does the application include an explanation of how the proposed budget supports the project and is cost efficient and reasonable for meeting the project activities? This concludes our presentation information session for the 2025 SEN. Thank you for attending. We will remain on the line for 5 minutes to allow you to submit your remaining questions to the chat for this webinar. To see the NOFO on grants.gov or to apply, visit grants.gov/search. The results detail /341131. For assistance with submitting applications, contact grants.gov. Help desk at support@grants.gov. And just a reminder, all questions must be submitted in writing via this chat or email to astp-leap@hhs.gov. Questions submitted today in the chat will not be answered today. They will be answered in the form of an FAQ made publicly available each Monday at the healthit.gov link on this page. And a few final reminders. This application period began January 15th, 2025. Today's information session held on March 6th, 2025. The letters of intent are due March 27th. The application deadline is April 25th, and the anticipated award date is June 5th, 2025.